So what happened is I was in a conversation with Joe Smith from Mosaic, and we were having a conversation about urgency. And one of the first things that came to my mind, it was how time is perceived differently by people who have urgency. That when you lack urgency, time just flies. It just moves faster than you can keep up with. And he was asking me about my own relationship to urgency and time. And I said, one of the things that people say to me all the time is, you seem so calm. You seem to have an incredible sense of peace or calm even when there's a crisis. I said, there's a reason for that. It's because I live my life with urgency. Time is never moving to me faster than I'm moving. When you have urgency, you're moving faster than time. And it's almost as if you're already there waiting for the crisis to happen. When you lack urgency, life is moving faster than you, and it is so much out of your control. And so I think that there's an interesting psychological relationship that people have with life, with time.
Oh, now the conversation is coming back to me right now, because we had sat in on Joe's first message.
Yes. And he was talking about a sense of urgency.
And you were giving him critique in the back.
And you told me never to do that.
No. I had already told you never to do that. And you had agreed that wasn't the best way to give feedback, was the morning of 5 minutes before he's going on stage. And what I told you is
it wasn't about giving feedback. It's about bringing in new ideas. Because he hadn't spoken yet.
Right. So it wasn't like constructive feedback. It was reconstructing a message before he had ever given it.
No, it was just bringing in some new thoughts and ideas.
So maybe the name of this podcast will be Mind F, not Mind Shift. But I did, you did it a couple months ago, maybe 6 months to a year, I'm not sure. And I noticed, I knew something happened. Like Joe wasn't the same. And I asked you, no, what was it? Oh, we were filming for a project that we were working on, Learning Labs.
Yes.
And I asked the editor what had happened between Joe preparing.
Why wasn't Joe at his best in this particular situation?
No, I knew something even deeper than that. I said, something happened. What happened? And he goes, well, and he's a very respectful young man, Yanez. And he said, well, your dad came in. And I said, well, my dad came in and did what? He said, well, he came in and messed Joe up.
I was just trying to be helpful.
And my thing is,
he was going to teach him the book of Acts, and I began helping him.
You didn't
see particular structures.
Is beautiful. This is perfect. This is perfect. You actually didn't help him though. And that's the thing I want to break down today, right? Because
sometimes when you're trying to be helpful,
helpful,
you may actually be hurtful.
Right. But this is actually directly connected to our conversation that we had last night.
This podcast is supposed to be about this.
This is great. No, this is actually exactly what it's about, because we talked about this, right? The second thing that I have written down that we were talking about is that crisis always starts internally, right? And that by the time it makes it to be external, by the time the crisis is external, it's already been internal brewing. So no, let me finish.
No, it's not the way around.
No, it's not. The crisis always starts internally. It always starts. What are you disagreeing with? Well, first off, you have not let me finish one of the 3 thoughts I've tried. You keep hopping to a new thing, and I will do this, sir.
I do not keep hopping to different things.
Yes, you do. First off, don't talk to Joe before messages. That was the core point of that one. The reason why he got messed up was not because you were giving him feedback, it was because you were creating an entirely new talk.
And you're saying that's a bad thing.
What I'm saying is that when I was sitting there having pancakes with you, I said, oh, that you're the problem, not him. Because often, like we try to make, like, I think this is perfect. This is the danger of mind shift. What happens when you try to have a mind shift and you don't have the time to process the mind shift?
Well, I think that one, you also mentioned that I may be projecting on other people an ability to process information at the rate that I process information.
Right. But it plays, you have a part to play in it, but it also is the other person's part. Like, Joe respects you so much, he wants to integrate as much as he can of yours into his talk. Whereas, like, for me, when I would give messages, all I needed from you was a quotable line. I don't want your ideology. I ultimately want your ideology that I cannot process in that moment. All I need is the thing that they're going to remember. And so I would use you for like, okay, give me feedback. Amazing. I can't use any of that. Give me the line I can use that they're always going to remember. So how do you
Speechwriter. I become a speechwriter.
But I'm also your son, right? I'm able to do that in a different way. But I think to get back to urgency, so walk us through the urgency
No, what I
conversation.
was saying was that crisis comes from the outside. Urgency comes from the inside.
Oh, we were talking more about
About how when like different things in life try to be urgent, and a lot of times crises become urgent because it's a crisis, right? But there are other things that are in life that are super important, and you have to bring the urgency to it because it's not a crisis. And let's say, for instance, it's not a crisis that I don't work out today, but it might be urgent because if I don't work out, it will become a crisis with my health. And so the challenge sometimes is that it seems that crisis is the only way many people are motivated. But if you have urgency, you do not need a crisis to live your life doing the important things.
So you're saying that urgency is something that comes from a sense, from an internal.
Yes, urgency has to be an internal driver.
You said this thing at breakfast. You said people tend to only move when the crisis is external, not internal. But the crisis always starts internally.
Yeah, in a sense, urgency is you creating an internal crisis saying, this is important, this has to be done. So you're creating the crisis from the inside out. But I mean crisis in a good way.
Okay.
Where danger and opportunity come together from like the Chinese kanji.
Okay, walk us through that.
And I think that in the Chinese way of writing words, that it's a combination of danger and opportunity. And when I look at a crisis on the outside, it means I didn't take care of something from the inside. Now, obviously, there's things in life that happen that you can't predict, right? But how prepared you are for that crisis has to do with your internal sense of urgency. And so the first time I write about this in my shift, that I ever spoke to a large group of people, I mean, I went from speaking to 200 people to 20,000 with about less than an hour's notice. And I couldn't have projected that. I couldn't have predicted that. I couldn't have known that was going to happen at the age of 29. And I could have had a complete catastrophe of an experience because I didn't have the chance to be planned for it. But I did have a chance to be prepared for it. A lot of people would have said, I need time to prepare. But I'd spent 10 years preparing, living my life with urgency. And so because I was living my life with an internal drive, and since I was creating the crisis, I was preparing myself for that moment that would be a crisis if I didn't have urgency to match the crisis. And so that moment became a really significant moment in my life, and it elevated my influence and impact in the world because I was ready for that moment. I think, unfortunately, many of us are not ready for our big moments because we don't have urgency. So the crisis overwhelms us. Any crisis that is greater than your urgency is going to overwhelm you. But when your urgency is greater than the crisis, you're going to be fine.
We kind of jumped 3/4 of the way into the conversation that we had at breakfast. But initially, I had pushed back and said, you can't give Joe feedback like or new ideas like that in the moment because you're really, really good at, I think you're Elon Musk level of being able to receive feedback and integrating feedback in the moment, right? You're able to strip away the feedback you can't and really receive the bare, raw, I think, goods of and refine that within your own self before you go up on a stage. But you have this incredible ability to process at a very high frequency and a high rate of frequency, right? At a high pace or fast pace. How did you build that muscle? Because it feels, because I've watched it work, right? Where I've given you feedback, hey, don't maybe do this or don't do this, or maybe make sure that you do this or this, and you're able to integrate it almost immediately, right? And we have that relationship, we have that rapport where you ask me, what do you think I should do, or what should I say? Or, is there anything I'm forgetting? But how did you build that tool? Because it feels like so often that we become so rigid, right? And I think that's something that I've noticed more in life as I get older, my level of rigidity directly affects my ability to learn, process, refine, and make something great. The more rigid I am, the less great something will end up becoming.
Yeah. It's also the flip side. That's the key, is that the more teachable you are, the less rigid you become. And so I think there's several things that I had to develop over time. One was to not take everything personally. So when I'm getting feedback, especially if it's in between talks, if you have to do one talk, you have 15 minutes and you get to do another one, and people give you feedback in between, that's when you're most sensitive. Right after you gave that talk, you feel pretty naked. All you really want is praise, encouragement, and moral support. And so when someone starts trying to critique you, you can feel like you're being attacked. And I see critique as someone trying to protect me. And so one of the things I've done in my life is I've postured going, any criticism or any critique or any recommendations or suggestions is really someone trying to protect me. And so I absorb those really, really fast because I want to be protected from my own blind spots. I think the other thing is, because I don't take them personally, they're easier to absorb. And if I feel like someone's attacking me, everything closes down and you don't have the ability to process or integrate. If you don't take it personally, you go, oh, okay, it's not, the message is more important than me. How this translates to everyone is more important. So I'm just going to process that. But the other thing is I try to take it, I don't take it personally, but I make it personal. And I think here's the key. You cannot integrate anything that is a moon, but it's actually outside of your atmosphere. It's rotating around you, but it's not a part of you. It has to become a part of your soil, part of your earth. So when someone gives you input, what you have to ask immediately is, how does this affect me? How does this relate to me? Where is this true or not true for me? And if you can't process it on a personal level, you won't remember it on the platform. Because it's just out there. I got to remember that thing he said. As opposed to, oh, I remember how that truth changes me, impacts me. And, and so like if I were talking about, say, the subject of urgency, and someone came and said, hey, remember, when you have urgency, in a sense, you're moving faster than time. I would try to think back, when was it in my life where I lacked urgency and I got caught off guard?